The government is bailing out the pre-construction market, and here is exactly how you can take advantage. So before we get into all that, I want to just tell you how things are moving in the pre-construction market. What are the new policies that the government introduced? And then at the end, if you stick around, I'll tell you a step-by-step process on how you can take advantage of it and make it work for you. The GTA pre-construction market isn't just slow, it's in a 40-year free fall. To put things into perspective, we haven't seen new home sales this low since 1991, and we've also seen a 95% downturn from the 2021 peak. That's just how horrible things are. Everything is stagnant. Builders cannot build because nobody is buying. And the main reason is because, well, number one, the overall housing market is very slow given the state of the economy. But the price gap between pre-construction and existing homes is quite large. And so if you can pick an exact, almost an identical home to a pre-construction and it's for, 10 to 20% cheaper, 90% of people are making that choice. Some of you may be thinking that the government is here to bail out the builders. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they're actually bailing out the big banks because they're so exposed to this. Keep in mind that when builders are building these new developments, they have massive construction loans, which all the major banks are extremely exposed to. And what has happened over the last several years is that purchasers bought back when money was cheap, when interest rates were super low, and when people had that additional disposable income. And since then, prices have come down so dramatically that buyers are just completely walking away from these purchases. They're not closing. And therefore, if they're not closing, builders are not collecting money. And therefore, they cannot pay off these massive loans that banks have provided them. So the government recently launched 3 different policies to help stimulate this environment. So one of the ones that they did, they launched Building Ontario Fund and High Art Capital have collaborated to launch this GTA rental and affordable housing initiative. So it is a $1.3 billion fund, and it's to help purchase 2,200 units from all these unsold buildings, from these condos that have not sold. They're going to buy them up from developers. And basically, what they're calling it, what the government is saying, is that they're going to turn these into rental housing and make about 25% of them. Oh, no, sorry, 550 units. So 550 of the 2,200 units will be affordable units, meaning they're either going to be 25% below market rent, or they're going to be 30% of the median gross income for the GTA. The government also launched 2 other policies over the last few days that got tons of headlines. So the number one is the HST rebate. So both Premier Ford and Carney have teamed up together to provide an HST rebate on new construction. So if you're not aware, new constructed homes are subject to the full HST, 13%, whereas resale homes are not. Probably not everybody knows this because the tax is actually built into the price like 95% of the time, if not always. And so therefore, if you are paying $500,000, if your agreement says $500,000, that's actually the price inclusive of HST, net any rebates that are available. So before April 1st, there was an HST rebate, but it was capped at $24,000 regardless of the price you pay. And now the government is saying that you are eligible for 13% rebate. Now here is the list of how you can qualify for this program. So it has to be your primary place of residence, or if you plan on being a landlord, if you plan on renting out, there are some different stipulations. So if you plan on living there, the agreement between you and the builder has to be signed between April 1st, 2026 and March 31st, 2027. So it is for only 1 year period. the construction of the home has to begin before or on December 31st of 2028. And the majority of the construction has to be completed prior to December 31st, 2031. So for anybody that has already signed an agreement with the builder, I'm sorry, but you do not qualify. Now, if you are someone that's looking to invest and buy a property and then rent it out, you can actually still take advantage of this program. So again, you have to sign the agreement between April 1st, 2026 and March 31st. The construction of the property has to begin before March 31st, 2026. So that means it can't be a new project. It has to be something that's already started constructing. And the construction of the project has to be substantially completed on or before December 31st, 2029. So basically the government is just trying to get investors to buy up all this unsold inventory that's in the pipelines as we speak. So this is massive. Previously on $1 million home, the rebate would have been $24,000, and it just brings the purchase price down because HST is not paid as a closing cost. You know, most of the time, I know investors, it works differently, but just for the simplicity of this video, I'm not going to get into that. But before, you wouldn't pay tax as a closing cost. It's rolled into the price. And now what's really cool about this new HST rebate is that you actually get a physical check. But because this is a very new program, you need to do your due diligence and make sure whatever project you're signing up for, that this is actually the case, that you will be getting an HST rebate check at some point down the line, that it's not reflected in the price. So make sure you do your due diligence on that. Now, the second policy that also came out was the development charges. So again, Ford and Carney did team up, and basically they are looking to bring the development charges down in Ontario. So to put things into perspective, development charges are, number one, the biggest closing cost, to buyers for pre-construction outside the land transfer tax. But land transfer tax you have to pay regardless of whether you're buying a resale or a pre-construction. The next most expensive cost is development charges. They can be, sometimes they're free, sometimes they're $30,000, sometimes they're not capped, and they could literally be any amount the builder throws at you. But keep in mind, this is not the full development charge that the municipality is charging the builders. This is just the cost that they're passing on directly to you on closing. But a lot of times these development charges can be, $100,000, they could be more. So here is a chart of the development charges per apartment unit by municipality in Canada for 2025. And you can see that for the average unit, the development charges that the municipality is charging the builders in Toronto is $130,000. The next one is Markham. You can see the first 8 are all within the GTA. So Toronto, Markham, Brampton, Mississauga, Newmarket, Aurora, Pickering, Ajax, and then we get into BC. But that's just how expensive that these development charges are. And so what Ford and Carney have done is that basically they're saying for any municipality that lowers their development charges by up to 50%, they're actually gonna pay them to do that. The federal and the provincial government are gonna pay municipalities to lower the development charges they charge to builders. And because they're not getting that revenue from the builders to, support that housing, whether it's infrastructure, the roads, the hospitals, the schools, all that, they're actually getting that surplus, the extra money they need from the provincial and the federal government. And why that's so important is because right now, keep in mind, builders are not selling inventory right now. They're just sitting and waiting. They're not making money. And so builders want to make money, of course. And the only way that they can compete in this market is by bringing down the price. And now that the government is removing a huge cost to them, they can then pour it into their final purchase price and pass that along to the buyer. So you can expect prices for pre-construction to go down in that sense. Now, when you pair both of these policies, both the development charge cuts as well as the HST rebate for buyers, pre-construction prices should be cheaper for the first time in years compared to resale. And I want to give you an example. So this is a development in Milton. It is a freehold townhome. Let's focus here on the Pembroke. It is a 1,600 square foot, 3-bed, 2.5 bath, and it's going for $811,000. Keep in mind that end units are more expensive. They are more valuable than the interior units, typically $20,000 to $25,000 more. But you'll see in a minute why that doesn't even matter. There's also no development charges for closings up to May 31st, so that cost is completely gone. So let's take a look at the alternative. So here is a property in the same area in Milton that just sold on March 1st, so about a month ago. It sold for $755,000. It's a 3-story freehold townhouse as well, 1,600 square feet, 3-bed, 2.5 bath. So 811 versus 755, you're thinking $55,000, I'll just go for the existing home. But let me show you with this HST rebate why that totally changes everything. Okay, so that pre-construction was $811,000 and the resale was $755,000. Now, remember how I told you that there currently is a HST rebate of $24,000. So that rebate is already built into the price, meaning you actually don't pay any HST on closing. The government builds it into the price and they actually collect the rebate on your behalf. So when you take that into consideration, the price inclusive of HST would actually be $835,000. And net of HST, if you back out the 13%, it would be $739,000, which means that the total HST applicable is $96,000. If I lost you there, just send me a DM and I'll work out the numbers with you. Okay, so we know that the HST applicable for this property is $96,000, and for resale, HST doesn't matter. You're paying just $755,000. This would mean that if you were to put the minimum down payment, which is 5% on the first $500,000 and then 10% on the additional up into $1.5 million, you're looking at $56,100 for the pre-con and $50,500 for the resale. And your land transfer tax is very comparable because, again, you're only paying the land transfer tax on the net of HST price. So basically the same. Now, where things change a little is that pre-construction closing costs are more expensive. They're subject to all the same resale ones, plus a few more. Like I mentioned, development charges are the major one, but as we saw that this one is not charging any development charges. So there's not really too much more. There's, the Tarion enrollment fee, there's a utility hookup, connections, there's some other levies for like education levies and just minor things. So let's call that about $6,000 plus the $2,000 legal fees. You're looking at a total closing cost of $19,000 versus $13,000 for resale. Now, when you add that on to your down payment, your total initial investment for this pre-construction is $95,000 compared to resale, which is $78,000, which is about $17,000 difference. But once you take into account that HST rebate, you are only putting in $95,000, but you are getting back this $96,000 as a cash rebate, okay? Which means you get all your money back plus an extra $1,500. Whereas with resale, there is no HST applicable, and therefore, once that money is in, it's in your equity and your closing costs are gone to the government. But here, you end off with more money than you started, plus you own a home. How incredible is that, guys? So if you want to start doing this and taking advantage of this program, this HST rebate, I totally encourage you to do so, but just be very cautious. Make sure you do your due diligence. I'm going to give you a few tips on how you can do your research and try to find the best programs most suited for you. Number one is target unsold inventory. So these are buildings, these are condos, these are townhomes that are already completed pretty much. Maybe they have the final touches done, and the builders are very motivated to get these off their hands because they want to collect the money and pay off their construction loans. And so they are offering very good incentives like the no development charges. Sometimes they give you a little bit of a credit on the price. Maybe they'll throw in some bonuses like free internet for a year, stuff like that. So target move-in ready homes. I also really suggest you target end unit freehold townhomes, and the reason is because it's the lowest entry point for a lot where you can build multiple units. For instance, in that other example that we just gave, you get that $96,000 rebate. And instead of just putting it back into your bank and doing whatever you want to do with it, you can actually take that money and you can build a legal basement apartment. You can add an ADU at the back, and then you can just turn that home from one unit into three very quickly, and then you're cash flowing. So I suggest you target that. Even if you don't even build a basement apartment or another unit, it just adds value to your home, because when you go to resell it in the future, there's a lot of buyers that are looking for strictly end unit townhomes to do exactly what I just said. Overall, just do your due diligence, guys. Make sure that when you are purchasing a pre-construction, that the rebate is not built into the price. The wording of your agreement is so critical. Make sure you get it looked over by your lawyer. Let them know what your goal is and to ensure that what you're signing up for aligns with that goal. If you're doing the multi-unit play, make sure you check the bylaws for the city where that home is being constructed, because every city has their own bylaws, the requirements for the lot in order to build that ADU at the back. And some cities don't even allow you to rent your basement. And so make sure you are reading the bylaws of the city. So now I've given you the step-by-step process on how you can take advantage of this HST rebate and make it work for you. If you don't want to go through all the hassle, all that research, I've already done it. And so I'm happy to share the details with you. Just shoot me a DM and we can jump on a call.